Hey everybody, this is another live stream from Rydo, and today is Monday, June 28th. I don't know why I said it that way. I am Rydo. Uh, let's hop into here. So the Steam Summer Sale is happening, and I think we can pretty much cover that in the accountability section very quickly because there's frankly just not a lot to say. It is by far the most pathetic, wimpy Steam Summer Sale I've seen in at least 5 years. There is a de-emphasis on these trading cards. You get one for about every $10 you spend. I spent $100 just to maintain my inventory of games and tried to do a little bit of catch up, but I was already aching my budget by them moving the Amazon Prime Day. These trading cards go back to being gray if you turn them into a badge until you get like at least one badge, I think, in the summer sale cases, and until you get 3 levels on an average badge. Sometimes it's even 5 levels. Once you've maxed out a badge, you get all of them, and you can actually see the art not zoomed out, as if that really matters that much. Like, they're literally making you spend $10 for what would just be free art that should be released. And that's like all the emphasis really there is. If we go to the point shop, which they are much more emphasized on, they now have profiles where it's giving you basically the same things that would have been sellable on the marketplace: backgrounds, avatar skins, things, avatar frames, things like that. These would have been something that you would have gotten for free, or probably gotten for free and then traded on the marketplace. Now with the point shop concept, nothing can be traded. You can never turn these points that you also get when you make purchases back into cash to spend on games. So it's effectively like the ticket system in an arcade now. So they're really cheaping out there. As far as featured items, even in the Steam sale, there's not really anything specific to the Steam Summer Sale. It's just, well, there's the Forge Your Fate stuff. I was wrong. So, Forge Your Fate items, which is their theme, seems like you can get those. Otherwise, they are just promoting games that I literally have just played. Like Left 4 Dead 2, I finished playing that. Or games that are fairly popular, like Cyberpunk, because I haven't played Cyberpunk, and Resident Evil Village. Although Agatha Christie's I did just finish playing, so it's kind of mixing together too. I did just finish playing Psychonauts. Stickers are kind of random. Here we've got some mini background pictures of some anime girls that must be fairly popular. But they're also asking a massive amount for a lot of this stuff too. It's not really cheap at all to get these customizations, where this would all be free in any other service if it existed. This would all be value add stuff, not something that that you specifically had to pay for. There are some kind of community awards that seemingly you don't get easily. Or you can buy them and then you give them away. I guess that's what you do. You buy these and you put them as like smiley faces and emoticons on reviews, which that's kind of ridiculous. And we really don't need to go over all of this because a lot of this is fairly obviously pointless stuff. And it seems like at some point they are going to just end up giving you back everything that you once had, and at some point you may actually be able to use points for the purchase of games again. If we get to the main Steam page, let's just reload this. It is black. I have confirmed that now. They are definitely shifting the focus away from the blue to the black, and I imagine we will start to see more of these elements either disappear completely or change in color to a more black and white textured appearance. There's a significant shift in the curator's feed that is way down here, and they are not emphasizing, in that you now get one free trading card per day for going through a queue, whereas it was specifically before you would get 3 per day for going through 3 queues, 1 per queue. So they have completely de-emphasized trading cards. So I imagine by this time next year, trading cards will be completely gone. And then they had this whole Forge Your Fate thing, which honestly, I'm just gonna have to say it straight up. I got bored with it after about the second one, and I stopped reading because I have better things to do than read jokey, trollish dialogue for a choose your own adventure minigame that does literally nothing other than give you this art, which you won't probably even be able to see after the summer sale, as far as these animated things. And each dialogue gave you one choice, which means it branched in 2 different ways that you could have gotten stickers, and each of those branching paths led you towards what I suspect is considerably fewer than you would think endings. That the final branches must lock back together, or it just randomizes it. At the end, it decided that I was the paranormal professor, and it gave this frame border to me. And to me, it looks like there's only 5 frame borders that you can use as far as an avatar frame. Like, very uninterested in that. Like, if you were going to do an avatar border of something, I feel like there would be something more I would want than just generic images that don't mean anything to me. Yeah. Once again, I would say this whole thing feels very much like they were there were employees of Valve justifying their existence as an employee who made this content. It is very bad. Alright, let's deal with Shadowverse a little bit while I opt to turn back on the ad blocking on Steam at this level, and I will check out some games. I may very well have forgotten to log in. I did a weird thing where my bed was kind of sloping on the edge, and I kept feeling like I was falling off the edge. So I put a pillow under the mattress, and while that seemed to help quite a bit with my hip, it seems to have just wreaked havoc on my, I guess we're no longer getting free 10 packs of cards. I guess that deal is over. It seems to have just wreaked havoc on my back, and I've been sleeping quite a bit. I don't know if that's because my hip hurts less or if my back hurts more. It seems like it could be one or the other or both, So I've been just like waking up, uh, being awake for maybe 4 hours, then going to sleep, and maybe getting 4 hours of sleep, and then waking up and going to sleep, waking up and going to sleep, and then it's just like, it's not even like I'm getting 4 hours of sleep in one section and then 4 hours of sleep in another section. I am now seemingly down to the point where I'm just napping for an hour or two. And that's certainly not a position I want to get to in my life where I'm just spending significantly more time sleeping. But that has slowed me down to a dangerous point. I now realize that I still have Pinball Arcade videos to schedule, and I have not, and I didn't do any of that over the weekend. And so, yeah, I'm being very inefficient with my time, to say the least. Let's see. I guess the weekend play private matches is also over. Good. We can be done with that, and the arena runs are over. Which that leaves us with just playing Forcecraft today, which is good, because then that can help us catch up on this Monday. Let's see. I mean, I assume the event. And I didn't do anything with these limited time stories. I just don't care. I am just gonna check out as far as limited time stories. If they don't end up in the solo event, then whatever. I suppose I am kind of in a decent position, though, considering how I want to jump off of Shadowverse as soon as the second dinner Marvel collectible card game comes out, digital collectible card game comes out. Like, the fact that I am not really invested in Shadowverse is probably a great thing. The only problem is we're still just waiting for that second dinner collectible card game to come out. And it is certainly still taking a sweet amount of time, a long amount of time. Anyway, so let's go through this curation list. Here we have one called Obsidian Prince, which looks to be a card-based tactical placement game. I'll give it a follow. We'll click to the next. Now I might, since I'm logged in, this is a curation feed, I might immediately curate into a adult game, so I have to be somewhat careful of that. They're still promoting the Summer Game Showcase recap, which those two events overlapped way too much. Here we have a game called War Tales. It's not out yet, and doesn't look particularly interesting. Here we have a game called Not Dead Yet, which looks like it's a low polygon zombie shooter, and honestly, I just don't think I could play a non-realistic zombie game that's a first-person shooter. I think you need that realism. Here we have Cactus Cowboy 3, which looks like an asset flip first-person shooter. These curation levels still are 10. Here we have one called Breach Wanderers, which looks like a card-based RPG game. There's probably nothing there, but we'll put it on the follow list anyways. Here we have Vault of the Void, which is a roguelike deck builder. Again, put it on the follow list. The problem with any of these card games and them being early access is that it's just kind of never going to be a audience for that. Here we have something called Zedfest, which looks a little asset flippy, but I'm going to give it a chance anyways. Meanwhile, we'll come over here and play. Then we have Madden NFL 2021, which is mixed, and I wouldn't ever play a Madden game anyways. Here we have one called VR Hot, which is tagged for sexual content, and it looks like realistic 3D models of women in various positions, and not really anything else. Seems like you get really up and close with them and you can grope them. Not sure if there's any real nudity. It says it's got nudity in it. I'll go ahead and skip that though. Then they have Yakuza 4 Remastered, which I think should be on the photo list. I don't know why it isn't already. And then we have Last Mortem. And then we have My Time at Sandrock, which might be interesting, but it's not out yet. It's early access. And see, go ahead and finish the queue. You've completed the queue and have unlocked 3 trading card events in total. Come back tomorrow to earn another card choice. Now there is this here, and this must be installed by a plugin where you could just cheat to go through another queue to get sale cards. And it's useless now because there's no way to get to this button without going through at least one queue anyways, as far as I can find. So
a corporeal form I need not.
So yeah, that must be something from like Enhanced Steam or something. But that's me done completely with the Steam Summer Sale. Like, it was fairly easy to deal with, just because I'd already spent so much on the Prime Day sale. And some of those projects definitely have a longer tail as far as expenses. Like my project to insulate my faucet spouts and set up a manifold for a sprinkler system, like that still requires a ratio 3 timer and the wires and 3 more electric valves and at least 21 more coupler adapters for all of that, and very possibly even to just finish the beginning, the first phase, I would need more hoses and more above ground hoses and above ground sprinkler heads, which ideally I'm not going to try and buy more of those because all of those things, hoses and above ground sprinkler heads, I'm kind of expecting them to fail at some point, and at that point move on to a phase 2 where I just bury everything underground, and that's where the real expenses it comes in, certainly. I did find out that the in-ground sprinkler heads have to be balanced in such a way, and this is something that hadn't occurred to me, that if you set your sprinkler head to do only 180 degrees and it's connected on the same line as something that does 360 degrees, well, that 180 degree sprinkler head will water the grass twice as much as the 361. So you have to adjust the ratio of the gallons per minute down for the 180, and you have to adjust it down even more for like a quarter of a circle, so 90 degree shot. You don't have to probably do considerably complicated math if you're doing slightly different. Like if you were doing 95 degrees, you just still treat it like a 90, because the nozzles that they give you are not that specific anyways. But you want to get it somewhat close, otherwise you're going to drown one part of your lawn while underwatering the other, or just properly watering the other part of your lawn. And yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. I just thought it would kind of all work out. I haven't dealt with sprinkler head systems, so I'm learning a lot there. But yeah. And the continued expense also is that I only built I've only got one box, and yet I have two faucets, so just the plastic box itself was fairly expensive. So to do the other faucet properly will just double the cost on all that. That being said, when you're getting quotes of like $10,000 to install a sprinkler system, what I'm jerry-rigging is still considerably cheaper than that, less than $1,000. That being said, there is a massive amount in that final phase if you want buried sprinkler heads that will require a lot of effort, rental of a trenching tool, and a lot of digging. Yep. That's a new card. I haven't seen that one before. And then the bathroom exhaust fan I had, I've pretty much decided I want to replace the space heaters too, so I need to get those whenever they go on sale, with replacing resistive coil space heaters with infrared bulb space heaters from the same brand so it matches. I'm going to definitely need somebody to crawl through the roof and install both of them anyways, so that's going to be like probably $500 just to get somebody who's willing to crawl through the roof and replace the fixtures. And so that's gonna suck also. Let's see.
Mankind's hatred is a curse.
But honestly, I guess that was the only two projects that are left. Prime Day does end up giving you a lot of sales for things, but I was specifically doing like home repair and remodel stuff that added more projectness to it, whereas buying micro SD cards, for instance, or hard drives, those are just, okay, I now own those things. I don't have to do anything much more with them. Although I do need to do something actually with the external hard drive that I set up as whether I'm going to use it as a backup or something else haven't really thought of.
Woodland Fortress at 12 o'clock.
Let's see.
Wither.
And just attack there. Do I have anything else to talk about? No, I finished Left 4 Dead 2. There's basically nothing to say about Left 4 Dead 2. It was an incredibly difficult game to be critical of, in the sense that it is such an online focused experience. I can say though, I tried to play 2 different modes online and could not get anybody to play it. There were people playing versus, but nobody was playing scavenge, nobody was playing survival, nobody was playing realism versus, I think, either. So that was a disappointment, to say the least. But honestly not super surprising either for a 12-year-old online focused game. And then I started playing Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which it's very weird that this is I believe, Ninja Theory game, not to be confused with Team Ninja, but I may very well be doing that. It's very weird that it's
Is that how you treat a lady?
from the same makers of Enslaved Odyssey to the West and Heavenly Sword and the DMC Devil May Cry reboot games, all of which had fairly decent action, fighting mechanics, and were very much what you would expect as far as a video game.
There's a lot more where
And then
that
you
comes
start
from.
playing Hellblade, and it is almost equivalent to a full motion video game that you would see in the 90s, where you're seeing a lot of cutscenes, and the only thing breaking up the cutscenes are these fairly poorly programmed so far battles. Maybe you'll get more abilities. It does seem like you get more abilities, so
Uncharted desert
it is
awaits.
possible at some point in the future that
My domain
that
reaches
becomes
to the end of the skies.
less of an issue.
I'll strike true.
But when you first get into these battles, you're getting 3 or 4 people, even on easy, 3 or 4 enemies attacking you. It's fairly difficult fights. You have to kind of counter. You wait for them to attack, you counter, then you do a few slices. It's not a high action game. There seems to be no projectile attack.
Good luck to you.
I can't help but think that the new God of War game, which I think only came out only a few months after Hellblade, probably ate the lunch, both in the fact that it was thematically a Viking game too, and in the fact that God of War's gameplay mechanics and video game-ness of it was just way more prevalent and obvious. And honestly, I think the story is probably better in the new God of War, so far from what I've seen. But yeah, all you have are these like perception puzzles where you have to walk around and find a rune or find something in the shape of a rune, and these fighting sections, and that's it. There's also little totems you have to find to get story, more story. But otherwise, you're slowly walking through relatively small areas. And it just kind of comes off as being somewhat lazy. Like the developers of Hellblade did not want to actually make a game. They wanted to make some kind of CGI anime-esque movie, and then they lost any negotiations, or if any negotiations for that fell apart, and then they quickly crammed it into a video game. So that creates a very weird situation where we know there's a Hellblade 2 coming out, and that's why I'm covering Hellblade.
Nice marksmanship.
But that's going to have to be a very, very different game, and it's going to make the first game feel like it's almost a demo or prologue to what the sequel is going to be, because the sequel of the game, I think, has to be way more of a video game. I don't think you can just have stories. There is big danger, I think, for a lot of people to even play Hellblade, in that the game starts off with you being one of the many voices that Suna hears, and a narrator voice in her head is talking to you directly as another voice in her head.
Quarry won't escape
Um,
that easy.
I'll chill
And
you to the
so
bone.
throughout the entire game, you are hearing this binaural audio of voices playing into your headphones, which I recommend you play with headphones, making it feel very close to hearing real voices in the real life. And so if you have like any mental problems whatsoever, I cannot recommend playing Hellblade. It is very, very likely to trigger a mental condition into anybody who's even slightly weak. Now, I will say, often when people hear voices, they don't hear clearly spoken words, so they kind of missed a thing there, where sometimes it often comes off as just mumbles and whispers and general feelings that somebody is speaking around you or talking about you around you. But that's harder to depict. Frankly, a lot of emotion and mental problems are extremely difficult, if not impossible, to depict in a game, and so they're trying something very, very groundbreaking and even attempting something like that. But I don't know if I can say they succeeded in that attempt so far. They also try to, like, they comment sometimes if you're looking in a direction or not looking in a direction to try to be a breadcrumb to help you. They also try to trigger other fears. So there are sections when you're crossing a high beam or a high place, and in crossing that level, they look down to try and activate anybody's fear of heights. There's a section that's all about fire, so if you have fear of being set on fire, which I guess somebody has that. Somebody has every kind of fear. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a point where you get like constrained and trapped in small spaces. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a drowning section, an aging section. The character has seen herself die in hallucinations or actually died, and the game is just like respawning her. The whole game is firmly established as very easily taking place in the mind of of Suna, and it's not a literal accurate depiction of what's happening as far as what you're seeing. It's very possible Suna is just having a mental breakdown somewhere and dreaming everything that occurs in the game.
I shall give birth to a new world.
The biggest problem so far I've had, though, with Hellblade is the fact that it crashed. I had turned VSync off, and I turned it back on, and then I went for an hour, 50-minute episode, and it didn't crash on the second time. So I'm hoping it was just my super powerful graphics card, which should, even though this is a 2017 game, so it's fairly new and is a very heavy on the visuals game. I still think that my 2080 should be able to handle it at 1080p. The GeForce Experience wanted it at a higher resolution, and then I said no, I'm not going to go above 1080p. There's no reason to scale up just to scale it back down. There's an anti-aliasing reason for that, but it just puts, I think, probably too much pressure and load onto my graphics card to scale it up to high resolution, scale it back down, record it, and then code those frames with OBS. So yeah, the crashing is unacceptable, but it's a fairly simple game, in which it's also a fairly linear game too, so it's not like I was doing something crazy. You walk slowly through the area, you don't really jump up over rocks. There are very obvious paths where you can walk and very obvious paths where things are broken. It does seem like in all the burned corpses that have been shown so far, they are all male, and it has a few corpse models where the male's butt are being is exposed, burnt butt is shown, which I think you probably might get Suna to relate more if she saw some women also being their corpses being horribly mangled on the edges of this Viking Helheim world. Right, so hit this. Hit this.
Yeah. Is that
And
how you
it
treat a
is.
lady?
But yeah,
Welcome back
that's
to the land of the
Sight?
living.
it's very weird to call it like a full motion video game, but that's really what it feels like, is instead of like trying to compare it to a Telltale game, which would be the other way you would
Everyone needs an
consider
afterlife plan.
referring to it as.
Is that how you treat a
But
lady?
even in Telltale, there was conversations and interactions with other characters where really you're just being talked to in Hellblade. And I don't know if the story really is going to be as good as it was described as a critical darling of the mainstream video game media. It does definitely have that feel that I've spent probably a little bit more money than I should have to have this game, to cover this game,
Got
when
your message loud and
I
clear.
think the average gamer may not care anywhere as much about it as people like Giant Bomb talked about it for a very long time
You're mean.
when it came out. Alright, well, and that's pretty much all the accountability section, so what I want to do now is run through the news, because while there isn't a ton of news, there's a ton of games that we had left over on Friday, and I think the Steam Summer Sale ends on July the 8th. So yeah, we want to just burn through this. Potentially, if we can, have a shorter experience. We always are trying for that.
Hey, let's play.
And then
The hunt has only begun.
move on. I need to do some scheduling, clearly. Take some breaks for that. I definitely did want to work on my RetroPie setup, but I'm kind of in a weird position where I don't want to have to unplug my monitor to plug in a different thing.
Double check.
And my small monitor, which is what I was using it on, has literally only one HDMI input. I could plug it into a bigger TV, but then I need a controller plugged into it, and I don't have another Xbox controller.
What an oath.
Adorable to the end.
That is something I'll be keeping an eye out for, though, is a Xbox 360 controller or Xbox One controller. Kind of doesn't matter to me.
Curse.
Why, just a wired one.
No one's getting you. I need more cuddles.
Come here.
Okay, so let's start going through the news. I'm not going to reload a lot of these pages, so we'll have the ads on it, which is not a big difference for Steam. Here we have a game called EU Sinkai Gold, A New Conquest, which looks like it's a tactical RPG game. It looks kind of like a Chinese game because of the massive amount of text here. Yeah, it just feels like too much of a gacha game, too much of a Chinese game. $29.74, English, full Japanese and Chinese, so I would suspect it actually is a Japanese game at that point. Here we have one that is just all Asian characters, which looks like it is an MMORPG with, at this point you'd call them asset flips, because those characters definitely don't look like they all belong in the same universe. $1.19, Chinese only. Here we have a game called Craftsman. Clearly I didn't curate any of this. This is just a Minecraft game. Although it does seem like the Minecraft game may have physics in it. This Minecraft clone might have physics in it. 74 cents. English only. That's gonna be nothing. We may burn through this faster than I thought.
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
Hey, let's play.
I won't let you get away.
Sorry, but the time for games is over.
Darn it. Next, we have a game called Wrestling Revolution 2D, which, well, I don't hate the idea of this type of game. I hate the visuals of this implementation. $4.49 English only. Here we have a game called Seek Wife that's tagged as sexual content and nudity, so I won't show that.
I shall give birth to a new world.
It's clearly just a jigsaw puzzle game
Rose,
with
double check.
a varied collection of anime girls from the screenshots. I'm not seeing even any screenshots, any indication that there actually is any nudity in it. It's $1.19 English only, easily skipped. Here we have something called Code Correction, which is apparently based on code correction. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. It kind of depends on if this is like QR code correction or what. What kind of code correction are you even talking about? $6.99 English only. That is way too expensive for such an ugly game, though. Here we have a game called Maze Masters with flickering lights. Looks like a dark screenshot syndrome game with first-person shooting, which is not what I was expecting for a game called Maze Masters. $13.49 English only. Cannot do anything. Go on Shadowverse. Here we have a game called X-Valent, which looks like a low-effort RPG Maker game based on its thumbnail. Free, English only.
Stop it! Stop it! Nice marksmanship.
Let's see. Let's come over here and specifically this week, I did not but open any articles from the gaming Envision gaming community or whatever that third news source I was trying to have. I just didn't see anything, and frankly, I'm really starting to question whether I'm probably losing maybe 4 or 5% of articles that are very unique that we might have seen from TechRaptor, but I'm saving myself more than 5% of time just by not going to a third news source. And so we may very well just get used to news that only from Gemetsu and Gamasutra, which I'd kind of like a third news source, but I'm pretty much given up on finding anything out there that I can tolerate. Oh, I should mention that apparently the creator of an emulator, BSNES, I think, died. Seems like there is Kiwi Farms, it sounds like, is trying to make more controversy around the character than probably it deserves, and that seems like if Kiwi Farms is involved, it's usually some low tier drama that doesn't really deserve the light of day, in my opinion.
It looks like I'm up.
So, like, the real news there to report on is that the creator of the emulator has died.
What's with the cuffs?
And we'll just leave it at that.
Play.
I'm sure there's enough people interested enough to continue the emulator working. Emulation Station, for instance, was abandoned in like 2017 by its original creator, and RetroPie just forked it and continues to maintain and update it. So it seems also kind of weird that they are maintaining it when at some point they probably would be better off just shifting over to a brand new front end. Like I imagine when RetroPie version 3.0 comes out, I think they're at a 2 point something now, they will have some new software that does a lot more and still runs well on Raspberry Pis. Also, I guess severely determines yeah, it gives a
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
a question certainly as far as
Sorry, but the time for
what
games
the
is over.
Raspberry Pi will look like in a few years,
How you treat a lady?
particularly with the chip shortage. Moving on though, news. I don't want to lose any momentum here. I'm actually feeling a little sleepy already. We have a job listing here. Sucker Punch is hiring a combat designer in Bellevue, Washington. I saw a review for the game Wet, which is this old, like, first-person shooter, high-action parkouring mechanic, shoot while you're jumping in slow time, kind of Matrix-style movement game that wasn't particularly written well and wasn't a particularly good game. But it was made by Bethesda, which makes an interesting thought. Like, now that Microsoft owns these companies, they probably want the maximum amount of possible games to be made as you could humanly expect.
Is that how you treat a lady?
So
No way!
I wouldn't be surprised. Oops, I thought 2 would be the number there.
One helping of this and it's nighty night for you.
I won't let you get
So
away.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the properties like Wet do somehow get full reboots. As a concept, a high action first person shooter parkour game with a
Looks like
badass
I
looking
won.
chick who was voiced by I believe the character who played Faith in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, that was the voice actress. Like none of those people have really gotten any work lately, so it'd be kind of funny to bring her back. Otherwise you would just put a different voice actress in there. Well, actually they may have gotten work and I just don't recognize them because they grew up so much that they look different. But yeah, if they did a soft reboot on Wet, which is kind of a terrible name anyways. Wow, we are already done with the daily missions. We are 48 minutes in and we are done with the daily missions. I guess we just play multiplayer. I guess we just go for ranked. What we'd really want to see here is tournament winners. Winning decks. So, can we make a rotation winning deck as far as this? Nope. We would need a massive amount of vials to build up these cards for this deck. we would need slightly less vials for this deck. Slightly less for this deck. Slightly more for that deck. Slightly less for that deck. More for that deck. That one. I basically would have to write down the numbers here and try and figure out which deck could I make that would be a tournament winner, that would use the least amount of vials. We just aren't anywhere close, obviously, to a lot of these. I think what I'd probably want to do, if I'm just going to pick a random one too, is let's make a deck that is more in line with Portalcraft, because I don't think I've won with Portalcraft much at all. I think that's probably also a true statement for Runecraft and Spellcraft. This would just wipe out a massive amount of my vials if I was to build these decks. I don't think I win much with Shadowcraft. This one wants us to have 50,000 more cards, vials. Yeah, I am missing a significant amount of Shadowcraft cards. This one's not too bad. But I can't help but feel like what I should do really is just get one of each card. I'd rather just have the art, knowing that I'm going to leave Shadowverse and kind of stop playing it as soon as the second dinner Marvel card game comes out. I would like the legacy on this account to be that I can go back and look at the card art much more than having 3 copies of something. None of these are really making good offers. This one's probably the cheapest at 7,000 for a Holy Sanctuary Havencraft. But I already have a pretty decent Havencraft deck. Interesting. This Holy Sanctuary Havencraft I do have everything of. Interesting. Let's see. Let's see. Holy Sanctuary. I may be spelling that. Turn. And we'll go 6/21. And see, that may very well not be any different than this deck. Anyways. Let's see, where were we? Winning decks from the Cinderella Cup. this is probably exactly the case, and we're going to find out that the new tournament results are not out yet, which I suspect that is the case. So yeah, I don't think there's a significant enough argument to go this route, even though this probably would help me win a little bit better. Probably should find something halfway through. Let's see. But yeah, I think I would still just prefer to do something like this, where you just say, show me all the silver cards, go into create card mode, and then make sure we are looking at all sets. And then we'll just click, 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 and see if we've done silver, which we haven't. So I would then go to this and just click this constantly. When would I have really any free time to really do this is the real question. And slowly I would be able to spend 200 gold, which would take quite a while in 200 gold chunks to have one copy of every card that is silver, working our way to potentially owning one copy of every gold card, working our way towards potentially owning one copy of every platinum card, legendary card. But I think this is the right way to do this. I don't think what you want to do is start with the most expensive cards. That concept probably would work if you knew you were going to start all in. If you knew you weren't going to be a free-to-player, you knew you were going to spend like potentially $500 a month on a collectible card game, and you were just rich, and this was your game, your only game to play. Then it would start to make sense to get the most expensive, probably better cards for actually playing the game early, and then opening packs to fill in the cheaper cards, and potentially getting duplicates of the higher level cards. And we can see these are ordered by mana cost. So if I'm at 2 right now, that definitely goes to show that there's a massive list of cards that I'd have to do this for. Yeah, we're on page 17 of 51. I probably would not make it very far, even on 30,000 vials, trying to fill out this collection. But yeah, that would be, I think, where the vials should be spent. I suppose while we're not doing anything and we have a whole bunch of news to talk about, I could very easily just say forget Shadowcraft today and let's just focus on the news and be done in about an hour. But I'll try some tournament play while we're doing this. We may have already talked about this, but Game Sutra has an article here. The Assassin's Creed Valhalla game developers departed Ubisoft for EA motive. We'll leave it at that. Team Fortress 2 hit a new concurrent peak players at nearly 14 years after its release. Now, how much of that has to do with the fact that it was probably cheap during the Steam Summer Sale? Also, I question if there isn't a bit of cheating that goes around Team Fortress and Counter-Strike Go's numbers, in that a lot of accounts buy that game to get like knife skins and things like that, and then they get banned for cheating very quickly, and I bet the banned accounts still get counted. Like, it is a free-to-play game too, so and that makes it fairly easy. I imagine a lot of the work from Left 4 Dead went into things like Team Fortress 2, which makes a lot of sense. I bet there are significant amount of code that was worked on for Left 4 Dead and then eventually went into things like Counter-Strike and all the other Valve games. We may have already talked about this, but Gematsu has this Deep Insanity cross-media project being announced by Square Enix. Demon Gaze extra opening movie and screenshots. I think we had talked about that. Earth Defense Force 6 second trailer, 13 minutes of gameplay. I think we had talked about that. Tales of Arise has its Shioni trailer character, which don't think we talked about this. She's some kind of high action gun shooting character. This Tales of Arise looks like a RPG game, JRPG game, which might be interesting, might not. A lot of it solely comes down to just what the game actually is. That there is a problem, certainly, that a lot of these JRPGs look interesting to the anime fans' eyes, but then are fairly overcomplicated and convoluted and just cliche when you actually look at it from a critical eye. Gematsu says Granblue Fantasy vs. DLC character Seox launches July 13th, and shipments and digital sales have topped 500,000, which that's basically 2 announcements in one. Let's see, there was a Mana Series 30th anniversary live stream event. They announced Trials of Mana coming to iOS and Android on July 15th, which this looks pretty good for a mobile phone game. Is there more of a trailer? It's inside this 2-hour and 30-minute live stream. You can see a little bit of footage. Let's see. What do we want to do? I think we probably just want to do this. A Mana Series All-Stars action RPG called Echoes of Mana has been announced for iOS and Android, due out in 2022 worldwide. And here we see what looks like several characters from several Mana Series games. Remember, they did say about a year ago, last time they had a Mana event, that they had a massive amount of things. One second, someone is knocking on my door. I'm gonna be right back.
The things I do for fashion.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Annoying neighbors. So that'll be an interesting experiment to see if I run into some content ID claim playing the entire trailer there, which I didn't even see the trailer, so I'm gonna quickly skip through it myself just to see what you saw.
The land of the living.
Want to play?
Step back. New
Yeah,
arrival
it doesn't look particularly interesting. Echoes of Mana.
Needs an afterlife plan.
Okay. So restore to defense to the leader, or I mean, I think that's pretty much all you can do. Is that, and then that, and then that, and I think that's pretty much all you'd want to do.
We're done for.
I just want to fill the emptiness.
Gametsu says Legend of Mana remaster update to implement the original font this fall, which I feel like the Legend of Mana remaster may have been the one that was very poorly received because it was just bad, a bad port for PC, a bad port of remaster in general. Seems like they might slowly be fixing this. A Legend of Mana, the Teardrop Crystal anime has been announced. No trailer for that. A new Mana game for console is in development. Am I confusing the event that happened? Yeah, I think I am. I think I'm confusing the Dragon Quest event where they said they had 22 games in development with this Mana event. Yeah, I am. So, yeah. Apparently we are going to get a massive amount of both things. So lots of Mana games, lots of Dragon Quest games in development. It is probably a slight indication on how the Japanese game developers are trying to get back to their roots, and they're not really experimenting with new things, and they're not really experimenting with trying to attract a bigger audience outside of Japan. That they are circling the wagons, as it were, which definitely makes some sense. Like that there's not a lot of faith right now, and I agree with Japanese companies on this point that they really shouldn't have a lot of faith that they can sell something that would have worldwide appeal.
There is not a soul without sin.
Because I think the pandemic certainly has limited the amount of people's budgets.
You will know you've got a death wish. Step up. Thus the world begins.
Let's see. Let me do this. And I think we go ahead and just kill this.
Keeps the doctor away.
Here we have a game on Steam called Terra Firma, which seems like it's a physics simulator of an island and nothing else. While this might have been an interesting technology for developing a bigger game, as a standalone experience, it's really a joke. It's free.
Check. Frills?
Here we
Double
have
check.
Card Tower Defense, which is a tower defense game, which is a problem. And adding cards to a tower defense game that looks like a mobile port doesn't really fix that problem. $2.99, English, Japanese, Korean. Here we have a game called The Mighty Chameleon Brothers, which looks like a collection of clones of arcade games that aren't done very well. It's free. We'll just leave it at that. Let's see.
Everyone needs an afterlife plan.
If you've got a death wish, step up.
Let judgment fall.
Thus the world
You're too
begins.
strong.
Here we have a game thrice in a row, a new adventure, which just looks like it's a match 3
I pray
game.
that you will be freed from suffering.
$16.99, way too expensive. Here we have a game called Candyland, which is a memory clone for $5.99, English and Russian. Yeah, there is no curation here. Here we have a game called Castle Champion, which looks like garbage, for $1.49, English. We can burn through these games very quickly if this is the way. This is a sock pop game, so we know it's garbage already because this is the developer that just flooded Steam. Honestly, I would say this game doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look good enough that you'd actually want to pay $4.99 for it. English only. Here we have Mecha Tactics, which looks like it's a hideously put together garbage character posing game as far as I can tell. That's what all you can do with it. $1.99. Yeah, we might very well just be able to burn through all of the news and everything, and this may be a 2-hour stream. Thank goodness. Although every time I regain any time, I just get tired and fall asleep anyway, so it's like I'm regaining time to sleep. I'm not implementing that time. This is probably an argument why so many people need bosses who are jerks who ride their butts to make them actually work, is because it is literally not in human nature to work, even if you desire to. You have a subconscious desire to save as many calories of energy as possible at all times. And that is only backfired on the human species recently, at which point where most humans have more calories than they need for daily usage. Next we have a game on Steam called Gravitize 2, which looks like it's just a simplistic gravity game, spinning balls, or spinning the lines so that the ball can make it to the center. 59 cents, English only. Here we have a game called Football Bus Battle 2021, which seems like that's probably a joke crashing racing game. $1.19, English only. I wonder if this is also some kind of like soccer political statement, if you can even call that really a political statement. But of course, being in the United States, I have not been following the like soccer tournaments of 2021, so I have no idea. Here we have a game called Last Resort, which looks like a first-person shooter shooting bugs. It's got too many menus on it, too much heads-up display. There's just a lot of garbage on the screen. Otherwise, a first-person shooter where you're shooting bugs might have caught my attention. It's free to play with no in-app purchases, so it probably doesn't have a lot of content in it. At that rate, it would not make sense for it to be a long-running AAA game for free. We have the 12 Labor of Hercules 12 Timeless Adventure. They stagger these resource management games to come out fairly infrequently, and I guess I need to applaud Jet Dog Studios for as a publisher for doing that, even though they are 12 games now under this, and they have like 3 different series that they release games like that out on. $9.59 is still probably a little too expensive. The thing you would think is that with the 12 Labors of Hercules and this being the 12th one, that this would be the final in the story, each game being one Labor of Hercules. But I suspect that's not the case at all. Next we have a game on Steam called Hero Raging Fire, which looks like nothing, looks like a Chinese cheap demo of a game, $2.99. Yeah, we have a game called Lynx E6. Is this a golf game? Yeah, it looks like a legitimate golf game too. Free to play, but then course packs adding up to $35.97. Third party account, third party EULA. I think that's asking too much, frankly, for a golf game. I also heard that people aren't super hot with the Mario Golf game that came out a couple days ago, which is a bit of a shame, but probably not much of a surprise either.
It looks like I'm up. Stop.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a game called Sword of the Paladin, RE, which looks like a RPG Maker game.
Zenith. Or there, I will rise.
Doesn't look terrible, but still just looks like an RPG Maker game. $8.99, Japanese only. Here we have a game called Violent Witches the Vindicator, which looks like a JRPG that is all over the place visually. Yep, this looks like garbage. $13.99, English and Japanese. Here we have a game called Cheap Game 3, which almost certainly Cheap Game is the worst title you would want to give any game at all. It looks like in a collection of mini games for 99 cents, as best as I can guess. Let's see, do this. And go ahead and do this.
It looks like I'm up. And that concludes today's sermon.
And then we'll end the turn. Let's see. Gametsu says Furaki Reiki 4 Gifu Station to Nagai Castle gameplay. This feels like this is probably a kind of walking simulator / visual novel. Seems like you're driving. Interesting, driving a car in a video game in Japan. Yeah, this looks like somebody just took Google Street Map stuff. Seems like you're riding a motorcycle too, not actually driving a car. I can't imagine though that this is a game anybody really wants to play. Dynasty Warriors 9 Emperors has a debut trailer, which it'll be interesting to see if people are still willing to play Dynasty Warriors games or not. This guy took out my card.
There is not a soul without sin.
So, we'll continue to play along without it.
Punish the wicked, spare the innocent. Let judgment
Hit
fall.
this.
How could you not understand? Is that how you
Hit
draw,
this.
lady?
On the turn. A game called Monarch has an opening movie, according to Gamatsu, which I suppose we need to look at the opening movie to get even the beginning of the idea as far as what it is. You have either blood or a red string of fate shooting at this guy, and then he slices it, or it circles around him. I assume this is supposed to be like a red string of fate. This is the problem with any of these opening movies, though, is that you just don't really know what the game is at all. He has like a crown above his head, and that's about all I can figure. According to this, it's going to be an RPG game. And certainly a lot of these announcements in RPG games are questionable, to say the least, as far as whether they're going to have relevancy. Okay.
Let
Hit
judgment
that.
fall.
And then we'll end the turn there. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Brass Birmingham, which looks like it's a board game turned into a digital version. Seems to be a fairly complicated board game by the looks of it, but that might mean it's actually very good. It's early access for $12.79, which is not really that expensive compared to other board game digital comparisons. They kind of have to get above the $10 mark because they're selling the actual board games often. You need an email account for online game login, English and Polish. I'm going to put this on the follow list. Here we have a game called Mousy Mick, which looks like nothing as far as the game. $2.99 English only. Here we have a game called Sunhaven, which is a farming sim game. That means I probably wouldn't want to play it. Visuals seem a little bit all over the place too for what looks like a farming sim game. Seems like it's a little too edgy in the visuals for that kind of game. But I'll give it a chance, I think. $24.99 is fairly expensive for any game that looks this small, and a third-party EULA certainly hurts it too. But I'll give it a follow. But it does have like 4 or 5 strikes against it already. Just go ahead and hit that. And then hit this. Here we have a game called Rep Trails, which looks like nothing. $9.99, English and German. Here we have a game called Sachi Bato President, It's Time for Battle, Maju Wars, which looks like it's a turn-based placement strategy game. Probably not something that I'd really want to play, but I'd like to see some more reviews on it. Apparently I'd already put it on the fall list. Right now it's $1.99. I definitely used SteamDB during the summer sale, way more, this plugin. So I definitely eliminated games that had been at its lowest price 10-15 times before, because I know they'll just go on sale again, and tried to focus on things that are at their lowest price so far. Apparently this is part of the Neptunia game, so for $1.79 I could actually get it off for, I could get it for 91% discounted, which that's an interesting thought. I don't know if that's the best thing to do. Try not to spend extra money. Let's see. Let's see. Here we have
I
shall give
Taisho Exilis Epilogue, which is a otome / young maiden visual novel, which
The time for
I
judgment
guess
and
we
redemption
put
has
this on the
passed.
follow list and see how the reviews go. There's a whole collection, and the first game is on my wish list. So, actually, I guess if the first one is on my wish list, I don't even need to go any further and put this on the follow list. Because if I was ever going to actually buy this, it would have to be, I would have to look at each of the other parts of the games of the serialized experience. So I can just leave that be. Here we have a game called Dress Up Pups, which is a match 3 game, $5.39, English only. Here we have a game called Martian Goes on the Attack, which
Is fighting and
looks like
despair all
nothing.
you know? May eternal peace be yours.
$1.19, bunch of languages. Nothing more to really say there. Here we have a game called Kingdom Builders. Yeah, I'm just trying to burn through all of this. We probably don't even have that much. $8.99 English only. A city builder colony sim strategy game with a cutesy art style. I think it deserves a follow, but yeah, that is definitely on the line. Yeah, we have a game called Real Farm Gold Edition, which, yeah, I still don't feel like a simulator where you run a farm is that interesting to me. You're basically doing somebody's job in a video game. Although farming itself is probably about the only interesting job that I could understand people being enthralled with, since it's something that a lot of people won't ever have the opportunity to do. Also, there's often in the United States the implication that farmers are often very poor, but they're not poor. They live often very limited, frugal lives of their own decision, but they're actually fairly incredibly rich. They have massive investments in tractors and equipment and seeds and crops and massive amounts of land. They have way more than what somebody living in a housing urban development area in the middle of the city would have. It is really more just an example of how in the United States and in a lot of capitalist countries, the rich try to pretend like they aren't rich, so that people don't basically start building guillotines and getting rid of them.
A bear a day keeps the doctor away.
Okay. Well, I don't think this evolves for free,
You were done for.
so it's probably a mistake to do this.
Put your legs into each and that concludes today's sermon. Back straight,
But
eyes
whatever.
forward.
I could have evolved it for free too. No, I couldn't have.
And that concludes today's sermon.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Chinese Zodiac, which looks like it's probably just a bunch of garbage asset flips. For $1.79, bunch of languages. Here we have a thing called a maze thing, which looks like kind of nothing. A whole bunch of garbage over the past couple of days. $1.79. It's probably not a surprise either, because if you are making, if you're setting yourself up for the Steam Summer Sale, and people know when the Steam Summer Sale is going to happen, or at least suspect when it's going to happen, they're not going to release brand new games on sale during the summer sale. Particularly since E3 just happened. Well, you might release brand new AAA games during the summer sale, but a vast majority of low-effort game developers would also flood the market during the summer sale. And, I guess it is a bit of a coin flip as to what you would do there. I could see putting your game out during the summer sale at no discount. I could see putting your game out the week after a summer sale to avoid the sales. Or the week before a summer sale to avoid the sales.
You're in good hands.
Get ahead of it. I don't know if the Steam summer sales at this point even really affect people's decisions that much.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Moving on, we have a game called The Mountain Hunting, which looks like a hunting game, and it looks like you hunt real animals or fake animals. Well, I guess they're all fake animals at that point. I guess they're all real animals. I thought some of these were animals that had targets on them, but I think that the game is just putting targets on real animals as far as where you would shoot them in the heart. $14.99, bunch of languages. I think there's a reason to give this game a chance. A small chance. Here we have a game called Global Aviation Dream, which looks like garbage. Just all text, English and Chinese. Here we have a game called Conet, C-O-N-E-T, which looks like a simplistic Chinese puzzle game. Early access, $3.99, English and Japanese. So I was wrong about that. One-on-one puzzle game. Dots and boxes. I'll give it a follow, but there's really no reason why this should be in early access. Okay, what can we do here? Basically have to play this. Kill that. Have to hit that. Need to play this just to get rid of a card. And then in turn. Here we have a game called The Tandem, which looks like it's a precision platformer of no real interest. Doesn't look terrible visually, but the screenshots are not doing it a lot of favors.
There is not a soul without
Yeah,
sin.
seems like it's just a little too simplistic. $7.19, bunch of languages.
Punish the wicked. Spare the
Yeah,
innocent.
I'm easily burning through these. Which is, I should be doing this every time I look at games. I should just be able to burn through games very quickly and just give a very flippant first impression. I often hem and haw over whether a game deserves to be on the follow list or not. And then when I go and do follow list cleanups, there's just a ridiculously long follow list of games that really should have never been considered in the first place. This one does look somewhat decent though. $8.49. I'm gonna put this on the follow list for Shipwreck Escape. But it does certainly benefit to be able to just eliminate
By your will, O Lord.
options. Okay. Go ahead and bring that back up to 20. Then in the turn. Here we have a game on Steam called Super Mambo Quest. Interesting. View article in PC Gaming Wiki. View on Steam database. Interesting. It seems like they're adding something here that hasn't existed before. Super Mambo Quest is a Metroidvania that actually looks like a game. We've basically not had any games that looked very much like games so far today. So, yeah. That looks interesting. It's coming soon. English, Portuguese, Brazil, early 2021. I think I have to skip things, though, that don't have actual release dates. I think that's just asking too much otherwise.
There is not a soul without sin.
The real battle begins.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent.
How could you not understand?
Meanwhile, do we want to end the turn or play that?
Stop!
I think we'll end the turn.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Next we have a game called Be Fence Be Mastered, which is a tower defense game with bees, which isn't a terrible
By
thought.
your will, O
It
Lord.
actually looks fairly
This is where
nicely
I truly shine.
animated. And a remaster of a tower defense game is a weird thought, but not a terrible thought if it was fairly good in the first place. $8.99, bunch of languages.
I shall give birth.
Do I want to play a tower defense game though, even if it is fairly good looking? I still think the answer is no. Like, I just don't see how I can get around that idea.
Best medicine.
Thus, the world ends.
Okay. And you? And in the turn.
Stop! Oh, way!
Here we have a game on Steam called Space Banditos.
The world
Which-
cycles on.
Doesn't look like enough of a game. Player versus player, $11.99, online only. I haven't even been really looking at that. Here we have a game called Equestrian Training, which seems to be mostly text questions and then some mini games as far as riding horses. Which $16.99 is fairly expensive, but there might actually be something to this idea of teaching kids how to actually learn how to ride horses before putting on a horse to be immediately bucked off a horse if they're not trained on how to actually ride them, which would be my fear, certainly.
There is not a soul without sin.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
Can't evolve this.
Let us conclude.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent.
And then we'll do this.
A fair a day keeps the doctor away. Harder, faster,
And
holier.
then we can't evolve that for free. We'll just do this anyways, I guess. Still can't evolve it for free.
No! And that concludes today's sermon.
Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Tank Box, which looks just like a Tanks clone in 3D, which, in all fairness, Tanks improved in 3D is probably a good step in the right direction, but not $9.99 worth it. I still feel like the arcade game Tanks is not much of a game.
Birth to a new
Here we have one Retro Classics Joe and Max Returns from Dead East. Seems like we're going to see more and more of these old NES style games showing up that has some relevancy, so I'm going to put it on the following list. $4.69, English only.
Holier.
Let us conclude.
Put your legs
We
into
also
each
have
prayer.
Retro Classics Night Slashers. which
You're in good hands.
again is from Ziggurat. This is probably less relevant to a game at $4.68, but I'll put it on the follow list. And then we have Retro Classics Wizard Fire, which again probably less relevant. Again, $4.68 English only. Probably be nice if these games were rebundled and made a little bit cheaper because of that.
And that concludes today's sermon.
Okay. Go ahead and play that.
I envy you.
Here we have Retro Classics Breakthrough, and at this point I think I'm going to put my foot down and say, just no. Like, this game in particular does not look interesting. $4.68. And I'll probably end up taking off those other games from the fall list too, because they're just not relevant enough. We're getting all these ranked victories, which would be nice if it got us up from C0 to B1, I guess, or B3, or however this goes, or C1. I'm not sure how the order goes at all. Be nice if we went up a rank, though. Here we have a game called Infected City, which looks like it's just a low effort zombie asset flip game.
Time for me to prove myself.
The zombies don't look too terrible. 59 cents English only. I guess that does introduce an interesting question. Do you want your zombies as corpses to look like they could actually walk around, or would it be more grotesque and horrific if you literally just saw their spine in the middle of their body as if they were being held up by some kind of puppet strings or magic force? Normally zombies' bodies look like they are mostly intact. Let's see. Next here we have a game called Adam the Storyteller, which seems to be some kind of puzzle game. There might be something to this. Probably not, but there might be. $1.59 English, allegedly full audio. We'll put it on the follow list. Here we have Haru to Shura, which is tagged as a 2D pixel graphics game. It, I think, almost as best described as a visual novel, but I'm not sure that this isn't more just a linear story experience. $4.49 English and Japanese. Definitely one of those games that needs reviews to tell me whether it's good or not. Let's see. According to Gamatsu, Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous is coming to the PS4 and Xbox One this fall. PC version is due out on the first on September 2nd. Which, yeah, I'm not really familiar with the Pathfinder series as to what it is. Looks like it is maybe a RPG game with kind of tactical placement. I kind of have the feeling right now where I want to get away from slow moving games. And this doesn't look particularly slow, but I'm a little bit tired of the slow moving games. For sure.
It looks like I'm up.
I do want something that is more of a high action Bayonetta DMC type game. Here we have a Gametsu article. Grime has added a Stadia version and launches August 2nd. I don't recognize this game Grime though. Yeah, I don't think I've seen this at all. This looks very weird. Creatures. Kind of a Tim Burton-esque Beetlejuice characters in a kind of weird hack and slash platforming experience. Is this coming to PC? It will also be on Steam, Good Old Games, and Epic Games Store on August 2nd. Yeah. Really, it's just the first I've heard of it. Let's see. Let's see. Gamatsu has Scars Above, 9 minutes of pre-alpha gameplay for apparently it's coming out to the PC, PS4, and 5, and Xbox One and Series. It's a science fiction third-person shooter due out in 2022. Let's see what it looks like. It definitely feels kind of like a Final Fantasy looking game.
You're done for.
With guns
Grovel.
going through
No.
some kind of alien world. Shooting monsters. Yeah, this doesn't look terrible. I'd kind of want more of a visual polish on this outfit. It's a little too dark and doesn't stand out on the screen, and this big yellow bag is just kind of too big for its own good. Turn that into a smaller pouch if I was to decide that.
Smiles are the best medicine.
We may be hitting a point of saturation as far as female protagonists, and we still have yet to really hit a point where games let you either have a male or female, or heck, at this point it should just be non-binary as an option too, as far as your protagonist. Instead of trying to have these unique characters, which game developers for decades have been saying, well, we don't give those options where you could make your own character because we're trying to tell a story and we're trying to really develop characters that you know and can relate to and write better story there. The problem with that idea is, sure, you've got Mario. Like, we know Mario as a character, but like, try to really name any personality traits as far as Gordon Freeman, the silent protagonist of Half-Life. There's nothing there. Or the main characters from Rage 2, or the main character from Chell. She basically has no personality as a silent protagonist either. A lot of games have made that claim, but very few games have made interesting characters you can actually relate to. Even in Hellblade, Senua's sacrifice, Senua, so far in the past hour and a half I've played, the first hour and a half I've played, she hasn't really talked or said anything, so you're only observing her from the perspective of the voices one assumes are in her head. Her own thinking seems to be clearly established at the very beginning of the game as not being directly connected to what is being said and what is being shown. So there is this whole false narration that feels like it's going on. Moving on, Nier Reincarnation launches July 28th in the West. This is the mobile phone game, which at this point we are running into a plethora of Nier games, with this cell phone Nier game, the re-release of the original Nier game in Nier Automata. I will say though, this mobile phone game looks a lot more like a game, whereas the depictions of Nier Reincarnation at this point would have made it look very much like it was just a walking simulator and nothing else. So good on them for improving that. We probably already knew this, but the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC character Kazuya Mishima launches June 29th. The pro wrestler has lost his Call of Duty copyright lawsuit against Activision. This was Booker T. Was claiming that they basically traced him and used his likeness in which Call of Duty it was, called Prophet in the Black Ops series. He was claiming it was based on his persona of G.I. Bro. And it probably was. The problem there, well, here they say it like this. One cannot obtain a copyright in an attitude, said the company. Plaintiff does not own the idea of an angry man with a scowling look. Plaintiff's claim to copyright over facial expression and attitude is not permissible and should be rejected. The problem here too is that even if they had directly traced his face, we have established precedent now that as long as they don't call it G.I. Bro, as long as they don't call it Booker T, as long as they didn't call it his real name, which I assume is not Booker T, he doesn't have a copyright on it. Like, it has to be a clear and obvious copy for it to hold any weight.
I must have faith. No!
So, yeah, this is good for any small-time content creator of any kind, because what this establishes is less of a minefield. It's still definitely a minefield, but less of a minefield for people to claim that your original creation actually copied something you had never seen before in the first place, which it's kind of ridiculous that people can claim you broke their copyright when you never even saw their content in the first place, but that is part of the minefield, certainly. And it is not particularly good for celebrities to be able to protect themselves from being parodied or criticized using copyright, which that is probably the claim there more than anything.
Should you be guilty of?
Moving on, Microsoft now has controllers for smartphones, which it's a little strange they didn't do this quicker. So they have Xbox mobile accessories for iOS direct devices. Here it has a similar layout, not quite exactly the same layout as an Xbox One controller, because this is lower and this D-pad is more rounded on the edges, so it's going to feel different. It looks like it's probably got either one set of bump triggers instead of a right and left trigger and a right and left bump. It's putting more buttons down at the bottom instead of in the middle where it can't be, and this is definitely integrating into more of an idea of Xbox Game Pass. If it's using the iOS devices, then this is probably a Lightning port. That would be my guess. It's kind of funny because right now Microsoft is supporting Epic in their lawsuit against Apple, and yet they're coming out with a product for Apple phones, and there is definitely this possibility that Apple will just remove support for these controllers and blacklist them and get sued because of that. This definitely feels like a controller idea that, well, this previous controller that was being shown, that one's different. It feels like something that should come for free when you order it, order a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate versus paying for it. See, this feels like this one is being made by Microsoft, but then you scroll down in this article and then you have the Razer Kishi Universal Gaming Controller for iOS, which I would argue this layout seems to feel a little bit more small than this, but actually this might have better grip, and I think you probably would want a decent amount of grip. We're kind of going full circle in this case too, where these games controllers and smartphones are replacing what a Switch can do, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or if that just means that we're potentially raising a generation of kids that are going to have a lesser experience by not having dedicated consoles and just playing games on cell phones, and then cell phones are going to inherently have larger and larger screens, which already I feel like cell phones have too large of a screen. But yeah, that does seem like the way it's going. And then they have a power strap, power swap controller batteries, which they also announced. And then the rest of this page is just straight up advertisements. Is this an infinity flow full of advertisements, or is it just a massive amount of advertisements? Really, it's just a massive amount of advertisements. Also, cloud gaming beta on Xbox.com is now running on Xbox Series X, and they've expanded PC and Apple device availability. So they're making some announcements. Very questionable why you put this out basically a week after E3. Why not either put out these advertisements during E3 or wait a month? Like, it seems weird.
There is not a soul without sin.
You're done for.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent.
You are forgiven.
Let judgment fall.
That
How could you not
and
understand?
that. Here we have a game on Steam called Cantalouper, which looks like a garbage game for free, English only. Here we have one called Skyward Descent, which looks like nothing, for $2.99, English only. Here we have a game called Artemisia, which is mostly negative, so I can't even put that on the fall list. Which is a shame because this looks really nice, but I wonder if it just is stationary images or just does not play well. Calling it a massive multiplayer, English only, for $16.99. That seems crazy too. Here we have a game, Rise of Humanity Prologue, which is a demo, so I think I'll just skip demos. Here we have one called Eternal War, which, let's look at the full breadth of the screenshots just to see that it's nothing. Early access, $10.79, English only. Here we have Unreal Golf, which looks like garbage. There's a mobile game that was somewhat like this. 59 cents isn't terrible, English only. It's a tough decision, but I'm going to put this on the fall list just to get some feedback, but almost certainly I am going to remove it later. Didn't play fast enough. Here we have Reginald's Death Arena, which doesn't look like anything. Although the graphics look slightly better than average. Looks like it's just a player versus player game, free, single player or shared split screen, which I imagine is how they really want to play it. Here we have anime puzzles, just very simplistic square puzzles. $6.99, English and Russian. Here we have a game called Battle Dead, which is too simplistic a name. Although the art doesn't look terrible. Let's see. $27.99, English full audio. I suspect this is an asset flip game that's just a little bit more polished. But I can't really guarantee that. And then you have like this Joker image that feels like that probably isn't licensed. The actual game looks like you're just shooting zombies. Let's see, there's a whole trailer here. A lot to point that there actually is some effort on this. It's single player with online co-op. Okay. Reward. And with that.
Who will pardon my sins?
And just in the turn there. Next we have a game on Steam called Tanks to Crusades, which looks like nothing. Free, English only. Here we have a game called Quiet Valley 2, which looks like some kind of horror game. Looks very weird, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I guess the real question here at 524 in English only, is there a Quiet Valley 1 and is it well received? It came out in October 8th, 2020. It got 5 reviews. So there's just no relevancy there. So we can immediately ignore that. And there's... Okay, so this alone should win for us. But we'll go ahead and do this. And go ahead and do this. And go ahead and do this, even though it's probably excessive. And then the turn.
The world cycles on.
At the very least, we're grinding upwards towards a better level. I seriously doubt I'll get all the characters up to, I think what is the max is 250 before the second dinner Marvel card game comes out. But maybe. It just depends how long it takes and how much I play of Shadowverse. Next, we have Scarlet Nexus on Steam. I did not realize Scarlet Nexus was so close to its release date. You see that it is mostly positive at 76%, $59.99, but the deluxe edition really brings it up to 80. Third-party EULA, English full audio. Is there Japanese full audio? Yes, there is. I think what we do here is you just put this on the wish list. It already has more than 30 reviews. It's already mostly positive. It doesn't immediately strike me as something incredibly terrible that I don't want to play. It does look like it is probably just a JRPG, and it might have a argument being a JRPG that is not part of a longer running series, that it's a decent game to start my journey whenever I do start my journey down the path of playing JRPG games. So yeah, that goes on the wish list. Next, we have a game that's all in Asian characters. It's some kind of visual novel that probably does not support English. $15.99 Japanese only. Next, we have Fate of Windshift, which is tagged as a JRPG. It looks like a mobile phone port of a JRPG game, but I think we're gonna have to see more of those happening on Steam as the years go by. Early access $7.99 English and Japanese. I'll put it on the follow list. I don't think I can just immediately say no to all mobile ports of JRPG games in particular, because JRPG games tend to be super long, even in cell phone form, so there actually might be an experience there worth experiencing. Although, honestly, I'd like to be able to cheat through the grindiness of a lot of JRPGs so that it becomes a much quicker experience. Take it from a 200-hour experience down to a 20-hour experience or 60-hour experience.
Everything.
I guess we play that.
Heavy scriptures.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Indo Crisis, which looks like a side-scrolling shooter, which I've pretty much just dismissed all side-scrolling shooters at this point. $7.49 English full audio. Just don't want to play those games. Here we have a horror action adventure called Last Message with what looks like low polygon characters. That doesn't really seem to match a horror game with low polygonal characters. But I guess I have to give this a follow and see. It's free, single player. I think I want to see it. And I see the beginning of the end, so we are potentially going to be done today. Way quicker.
Back straight, eyes forward.
Let's just do this.
A fair a day keeps the doctor away. You're done for. Put your legs into each wear.
That's too bad.
Next we have a game called Astrodition, which is some kind of space co-op game.
Be gone.
$12.99 English only. English allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Devil Eater, which is some kind of asteroids clone of no real interest. 99 cents English and Korean. Here we have Ascendance Rising, which looks like it's a player versus player game. It doesn't look particularly that good. Early access $16.99, online co-op only. Okay, play this. And then, do I want to play this? I think you kind of do. Let's see. We have Zombie Apocalypse 2021, which seems to be just shooting zombies, kind of tower defense game.
Witness the fury of my
This might not be a terrible game though. $1.79.
Got your back.
Follow. We'll put it on the follow list. English only.
No!
One of the things about Left 4 Dead that really made it super boring when you were doing the developer commentary is just, even on easy difficulty in the developer commentary with the AI director's feature disabled, you just could not get killed even if you tried. I spent like 20 minutes and finally had to just jump off a ledge about 8 times to kill myself. And it's just incredibly boring if they don't have the special infected ever spawning like they do in the developer commentary.
You're in good hands.
And frankly, Left 4 Dead 2, even though it is a major improvement over Left 4 Dead 1, is still a fairly boring game. It just doesn't have enough going for it. And maybe that's because it's 12 years old, but standards certainly have been raised. Here we have a game on Steam called Party Host 85, which looks like garbage. $4.49. Here we have a game called HMMM Sim Metro, which that's a weird name. Probably stands for something, but I don't recognize it. Early access 1999, English, Korean, and Japanese. It's in Seoul, Subway in Seoul, like Korea, so HMMM Sim may make more sense because of that.
There is not a soul without sin.
The real
This
battle
works.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent. My apologies.
Yeah, we have a game called Athletics 3 Summer Sports, which, yeah, the animation is just not good enough on these for this to be something I'd want to play. $3.99 English with online PvP. Yeah, I'm a little surprised we don't see more annualized summer sports games, but they turn out to all be terrible. I guess the good news is if we do actually finish in just about 3 hours or less, that works well because I started fairly late today anyways. Here we have a game called Gallantry, and while this doesn't really look like much of a game, the concept is interesting.
It won't be long now.
But the implementation looks pretty boring. $7.99 is also too expensive.
By your will.
English full audio.
Get it? I'm done.
Okay, we want this. We want this.
Look to the zenith. For there, I will rise.
There.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
And one return. Here we have a game called Fire and Dungeon, which looks like nothing. 99 cents, English and Russian. Here we have Shopping Mahjong Connect, which looks like nothing. Connecting to for Mahjong Solitaire, basically. 51 cents, English only. Here we have Deflection Laser Chess, which I feel like we've seen this already. Yeah, this is coming soon. Really need to not have things that are coming soon on the fall list still. Here we have a game called Sentence VR, which seems to apparently you're in charge of beheading people. VR. The art and the visuals here, this color palette looks awful. VR is $5.59. What languages? English, allegedly full audio. Yeah, I get the idea there of doing a very dirty job, as it were. And why a VR experience of that might be an interesting artistic story to tell, but it kind of visually needs to look good. Here we have a game called Money Falls Coin Push Simulator, and the thing here is I kind of want a game like this, but is this going to be VR only?
say that you will be
$10.79 is very expensive. Third-party UI, English only. I'll put this on the follow list, but kind of would like to see something without a third-party EULA, something about half the price. Coin pushing games aren't actually that fun. I don't think more than 1% of gamers in the entire world would even want to really play them for more than 5 minutes in a virtual environment. I don't think most people would want to play them in even the real world environment if they weren't just bored and had nothing better to do. They're the kind of things you'd put in a laundromat because you would have nothing better to do than sit around waiting for your laundry to dry. Here we have a game called To Kill a King, which looks like just an RPG game. $3.59, English only. Here we have a game called Spell Hunter, which looks like a spelling game of no interest. English not supported, $2.99, German only. Here we have a game called Super Squad, which looks like it's a player versus player Overwatch clone with bad graphics for that style of game. Free to play with online PvP only, in-app purchases, and English only. Here we have a game called Up Aeon, A Snake's Journey, which seems to be like a slow version of Snake, which is really just a box pushing game. At that point, a box sliding game, not a box pushing game. They're calling it a Sokopon game. $2.69, bunch of languages. Let's see, we had already talked about this, but Bermuda's Pokemon Go players petition Niantic to make pandemic tweets permanent. Here we have a game called Rumble Runners. I'm just trying to burn through all of this at this point. Yeah, that doesn't look like anything. $4.79, English only. Here we have Valakas Immortal, which doesn't look visually polished enough as a twin stick shooter game. If this had come out in the 90s, I might have given it a chance, but not in 2021. $3.19. You know what I realized is just now, and it's taken me way too long to realize this. There's no reason for me to mention if something's discounted or not. Whenever I say the price, it is the price that it is of that second, whether it's on sale or not, because the prices could change at any point. So prices subject to change should just be the general way of moving forward, to just assume that. This game, Bro Falls Ultimate Showdown, looks like it's a Wipeout clone style game. Early access, free to play with in-app purchases, English and Hungarian. Here we have a game called Roguely, which I don't think the graphics are good enough for this game. Fantasy themed top-down twin stick shooter. $5.99, English only. Here we have a game called Recall, which looks like it's a beat 'em up kind of boxing game. Actually looks like there's some effort put into this one. Early access, $8.99, English and Turkish. So I'll put that on the follow list. Here we have a game called Undead and Beyond, which looks like a top-down twin stick shooter zombie game. So it seems like what you're doing is trying to use the zombies to your advantage to escape, or you're raising the zombies to kill other people. It's not so much a top-down twin stick shooter game. So a slightly different experience, but enough that I'll put it on the follow list to see how people like it. Here we have a game called The Fate of a Bully, which Looks like it's not much of anything as far as a game. 75 cents, English and Russian. Looks like a Russian low effort game. Here we have a Hidden Expedition, a King's Line Collector's Edition from Big Fish Games. Another hidden object game. $12.59. They're back up to $12 costs. Here we have Babol, the Walking Box, which is already on the fall list, but we can see the ratings are not going well for it. $5.24, bunch of languages. Here we have a game called Crazy Foods. Food shooting other foods. It's probably a joke troll game, but there might be something funny about that. 1039, bunch of languages. I'll give it a follow. I think we probably had already covered this Gamma Sutra article, Academia and the Black Experience in Games, with Professor Lindsay Grace. Check that out if you're interested. Here we have a game called Farty Bird, which is just Flappy Bird with farts. A joke game, obviously coming soon, English only. Xbox Game Studio is hiring a rendering engineer for Twycross United Kingdom. We probably talked about this. Two Australian brothers want to turn your Xbox Series S into a laptop, according to OpenCritic. I think I'd already talked about that. I think a lot of these we did talk about, and I just couldn't close the tabs because there were so many open. VR Chat scoops up $80 million in funding with the help of Anthos Capital. Excuse me, my voice is running dry. As you probably read by now, everybody but game devs can earn more on the Microsoft Store starting July 18th. Which tab am I on? That one? Yeah, we have a game called Loop Index, which doesn't look like much of a game. Loop Mechanics. $3.99, bunch of languages. Yeah, I'll give it a follow. We'll see if people like it. Here we have a game called Ashes of Legends, which seems to be a tower defense and real-time strategy game. I don't think looks amazingly good, though. It seems like it's kind of all over the place, with different kinds of gameplay mechanics. $14.99 VR too. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Here we have Surface Lost Tales Collector's Edition from Big Fish Games. Another hidden object game. They all look exactly the same. This one is $5.99 though, so it's considerably cheaper. King of Fighters Vanessa trailer and screenshots. I'd already looked at that. Let's see. YouTube just permanently banned, I believe, Right Wing Watch, which was I think, pro-censorship organization going against right-wing YouTube channels and such. So, yeah. This is the problem with censorship in general, is that if you embrace it for one side, it will eventually have to be embraced for the other side, and YouTube as a corporation is going to be more than happy to ban just everybody and anybody on every side of every issue to avoid controversy and just make money. Honestly, I'll throw out my opinion. I think YouTube as a service does a fairly decent job to not polarize people that much while still allowing people who are right-wing to see right-wing content, and they certainly don't do anything at all to hurt or hinder left-wing content. They basically promote it completely. So honestly, I would say YouTube probably should just wash their hands of it and try not to ban anybody at all for any reason, because even when you ban somebody legitimately, like the Steven Crowder, Louder with Crowder bannings, like there probably were some legitimate arguments to ban him, but even when you do ban him that way, they can very easily twist the story to make it seem like it's an illegitimate banning, and unless you clearly and obviously explain why somebody's banned, it's very easy for it to make YouTube become the bad guy when they could have just stayed out of it. So yeah, that is to say, I think probably Steven Crowder should not have been banned either. But I have not followed a lot of that stuff on YouTube. That kind of drama is not healthy for anybody on either side. Here we have a game on Steam called Monstrous Lovers, which looks like a visual novel where you would be dating werewolves and such. See, it's $13.49, English, Spanish, Latin America, full audio. Put it on the follow list. It might not really make it any further than that. And then we have a game called Inflatable Doll here that's tagged sexual content and nudity. Although, in all the screenshots being shown here, I'm not seeing any of that. In fact, I'm seeing just I don't know if this is a match the cards game or what. Or just exposing this anime image. 84 cents English and Chinese. Nothing there, really. And then we have Pixel Game Maker Series Isekai Quartet Adventure Game Collection, which seems like that might be based off an anime or different animes. $14.99, Japanese only. I'll put it on the follow list. See, this character is from one isekai anime, but I'm not sure if this character and this character are from the same isekai. I don't think they are. Yeah, these are definitely from like 4 or 5 different anime isekais. Isekai meaning another world. And there's a lot of isekai animes out there. Yeah, that definitely is from a different anime. Yeah, I'd probably have a hard time even recognizing a lot of these characters. So I don't know if I'd particularly do well with a game like that. Did we cover Kingdom Builders? Yeah, I think I was going to put this on the follow list. I don't know if I really want to put it on the follow list though. I think we can say no to it. See, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Focus Home Interactive boasts record year as it continues to accelerate its transformation. You can read more if you're interested in that. And an Indian game streaming app Loco nets 9 million from investors, including the PUBG owner Crafton. Okay, so with that, I have no more games to talk about, and we are 2 hours and 30 minutes in, so I'm just gonna go down my my Twitter feed and see if there's been any new news in the past couple hours. Otherwise, we are going to be, I think, very well suited to ending this stream, which is great. The dog that they facial scanned or modeled dog meat after in Fallout 4 was named River. He died. He was like 14 years old. This happens to dogs. I don't think that particularly is big news or even notable news. It's the kind of thing you could kind of the kind of thing that probably could just be not mentioned. At a certain point, you could make the exact same argument for actors or voice actors in video games dying like 10-20 years later, particularly if they only worked on one game, which would be the case in this instance. Let's see, I'm just going down my Twitter feeds and I will be done fairly quickly here. Let's see. And envisiongame.com.co.uk or whatever. envisioncommunity.co.uk. I didn't get a single article from them this time because pretty much they didn't have anything new to say. Let's see. So Gamma Sutra has a article here. What's the best timing to release your game? Which that's an interesting question, certainly, and I'm not sure they're going to tell you a good I don't know if they're going to tell you a particularly good answer. A lot of times they'll put out these questions in articles and then they'll respond with, it depends, because it really does depend, but that's not a satisfactory answer. ScumVM is looking for open beta testing of the Journeyman Project and the Journeyman Project 2 Buried in Time. They're doing public testing of that. Which, yeah, more games coming to ScumVM emulator. I had heard a little bit about this, but I'm not going to pay a lot of attention to this. But Gamma Sutra has an article here. The Fallout New Vegas writer Chris Avallone is filing a liable lawsuit over sexual misconduct allegations. I'm not sure we even covered this originally when this happened. He's definitely claiming that a lot of the mainstream video game media people have wrote articles that were just completely awful, did not do their research, didn't do anything. This is definitely a hashtag Me Too thing. It does sound to me like there are definitely some claims that were easily disproven. For instance, one instance of someone claiming to be assaulted by him when he wasn't even on the same continent at the alleged time of the incident. The United States does have this, some states in the United States, I think it's per state, have these strategic lawsuit against public participation dismissals. This is what the Vic Mignogna case was dismissed and then sent to appeals on, which Vic Mignogna's case even though it's been going on for probably 2 years now, it's still going on. So this is not really the beginning of the end of anything, but the beginning of a long legal battle one way or the other. But yeah, these kind of stories in particular, I don't think even really serve to improve the video game industry as far as making better games, because he was just like dismissed from the video game company that he was working with without them allegedly doing any research at all, and so the company didn't protect him. This wasn't allegations, as far as I can tell, of a industry-wide problem or a problem inside even the companies he was working with. These are allegations that he got drunk and groped, kissed someone at a convention, someone that doesn't even work in the video game industry. So like, calling out one person who may be a bad person gets rid of that one person, but it doesn't address any bigger issue or make any bigger story. If Chris Avellone worked for a bank, the New York Times would not be writing articles about him in their banking section, certainly, and probably would not be writing articles about it. Remember, the Associated Press too has now chosen to not even name people who have been accused of crimes by the actual criminal political method until they're convicted, because of the long-term effects that an accusation can follow someone for the rest of their life in this new digital world. So if video game journalists were actual journalists and good at their job, they should follow that suit, and they should have never mentioned Chris Avellone in the first place. If there was any story to be mentioned at all, which it probably wasn't, the story should have never been propagated at all, more than likely. But if there was a story to be propagated, it should have been a notable video game writer, which I think he's a writer, has been accused, and that should be it. And I don't know if that's even in the public interest to write an article like that. Most mainstream video game journalists don't ever even consider the public interest at all. It is completely something they just don't care about, which is another problem, certainly. So we might have to talk about this lawsuit a little bit more. But yeah. Well, ideally, I don't think it's a lawsuit really worth talking about. So at that, it's been 2 hours and 38 minutes, and this is a good point to stop. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.